So do you remember like 8 months ago, whenever we just started recording the show remotely again, and like there for the first couple of weeks, we were like, we're reporting from week number 2 of quarantine. And then like about 3 or 4 weeks in, we were like, let's quit naming the number of how many weeks this has been going on. It's only going to depress people if it gets up to like 5.
Yeah. Well,
what sweet summer children we were, Steve.
I'm glad we did stop naming the weeks, though, because I can't imagine if we're like, it's week, I don't know.
Yeah, I'd be having to use somebody else's fingers and toes to count this, and I'm pretty sure. Welcome, Dead and Lovely listeners, to the brand newest installment of Dead and Lovely, the only horror movie review podcast that there is. It's just the only one that there is. Don't even bother looking for nothing else. It's right here. Here with the host with the most. Why, it's me, your good buddy, Uncle Ben.
And me, your better buddy, Hollywood Steve.
You always gotta
text
be throwing
me
that
on
in my
our
face.
secret text channel where we don't let Ben know.
Hey, let me know about it. Let me in, guys. Come on. I'm cool.
Oh, yeah, Ben. Hey, what's up? Hey, Ben. We're not doing cool stuff or anything.
Okay, all right. Well, just let me know if you do anything cool later. I'll be around, I guess.
All right, guys, let's go to the strip club.
Dang it, I missed again.
These guys love the strip club.
They do. They totally do. It's right, man. And today we're going to be talking about Pan's Labyrinth, drinking a tasty co-beer, running down some of our favorite dark fantasy movies and all that stuff. But you know what, Steve? If you just are one of those sticks in the mud that wants to get right on to the movie review, you just can't wait to find out if we like this movie or not. Oh, I gotta know now. There's a timestamp for you. It's in the podcast description. You can go right to that. But you're gonna miss the hangs. I'm just gonna warn you.
That's true.
There's gonna be some good hangs. I got some good stuff here to put out to you, Steve.
If you're trying to get to the score, I don't even know what you're going for. It's not like we have some rigorous rubric or anything. We're just like, I don't know, I'm feeling a 6.
Yeah.
It's a 6.
Yeah. It's just how it goes.
So skip ahead. We got the timestamp. Just skip ahead.
Yeah. How you been doing this week, Steve?
I have been doing pretty well. I've been kicking it. I've been real busy, so I've been leaning back on some movies I've seen before.
Yeah. Some old classics, some standbys.
Yeah, some real classic standbys. In fact, I went with
Dr. Zhivago.
Right. No.
Bridge over River Kwai.
No, even
Jerry
better.
Maguire.
Friday the 13th, Part 6, my friend.
Okay, yeah, that is better.
Yeah,
that's actually better
classic.
than any of those.
And also Dream Warriors. I just wanted to watch some of my favorite representative sequels. This happened because I think you mentioned maybe like a month ago that you watched the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake.
I did, yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, man, I watched that back in the day, and I have an irrational hatred for it. I should watch it, give it a chance, really give it the opportunity. Because the first time I watched it, it was like, what the hell? This shouldn't exist.
Yep.
Why even trying? Just get out of here with this idiocy.
Yeah.
Now I can tell you for sure. Why did you even try? Get out of here with this idiocy. That movie is fucking terrible.
It's not good. It's just one of those things where it's like, it didn't really need to happen. It sticks close enough to where it's like they're trying to give you the beats of what you got out of the original without just doing the original.
Yeah.
It's like, really, what did you want to do here?
Yeah, I think it's another one of these test remakes, because it was early in the remake boom. Yeah. I think it's like, okay, how much do we have to change? The thing that just blows my mind is that it starts with an attempt at the Texas Chainsaw Massacre opening that is just, ugh. It's that terrible early 2000s digital black and white with like attempt at the scratchy look, and it's like, it's just the same loop over and over. Like, it's not scratched film. Anyway.
Right, yeah, it's easy to tell where it's starting over and stuff, yeah.
Yeah, but like, you got that, and it's like, okay, whatever. But then immediately kicks into Sweet Home Alabama, and I'm like, what the fuck is happening? Why? Like, oh, we really want to subvert expectations here. Fuck
it
you.
Really reeks of like all the worst parts of what Rob Zombie does, doesn't it?
It kind of does.
Like the worst parts only,
yes. Like, I guarantee that Rob Zombie watches that movie and he's just like, oh, God, Like, fuck, those are all the mistakes. Like, like those are the things I avoid. That's everything I avoid. You made those mistakes.
Yeah, it's not really very good, man. It's not very good.
Yeah. Well, it put me on to the track of, like, is there a good Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie other than the first one? I mean, the second one has its charms.
Yeah, it's zany. It's just cocaine, yeah.
It's not on the same level as the original.
Mm-mm.
So I remembered liking Leatherface as a kid, so I watched Leatherface, trying to
I've
be
never
like,
seen that.
Well, here's the thing. At the time it came out in 1990, I would say it's like super violent for its time, and maybe sort of foreshadowing how horror movies would start to go later in the 90s. But it's also just not a great movie. But it does have Viggo Mortensen.
Oh,
so that's fun.
That's a good thing. Yeah.
Viggo Mortensen putting on a southern-ish accent. Yeah. But, I mean, it's got some cool scenes. A guy gets his hands nailed to a chair. That's pretty wild.
Big fan of that.
Yeah. Who doesn't love that?
Rob Zombie also did that in Devil's Rejects, didn't he?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I would say you watch Leatherface, and there's definitely a good bit of Rob Zombie. Like he definitely was going for some of that, because there's a character named Alfredo who is so much a Rob Zombie character, like 10 years ahead of any Rob Zombie movie. So I mean, I would say for sure it is closer to the original than part 2. Like, it's far less silly, but it's still not on par. I'm gonna try to watch some of the others though now. Like, I'm gonna try, because I haven't seen 4 since forever. Like, and it has Matthew McConaughey with like a weird leg that he operates with a TV remote for some reason.
Doesn't it have like Zellweger or Reese Witherspoon or somebody in it?
Yeah, it's got Renee Zellweger in it. And I think like it's like one of her first movies. Anyway, I remember that one being very weird, and I'm gonna try to watch the other like newer sequels. The one with Alexandra Daddario, I kind of remember being okay, but I'm not positive because I haven't seen it in so long. Okay,
right on. Well, let me know how those go, because I don't think I've seen any other than 1 and 2 in the remake, honestly.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to keep updated, but I'm also trying to not go crazy, because I'll tell you what, if I watched those sequels like in a row, I'd probably go insane. So what have you been watching, Ben?
Man, not much, because I have also been insanely fucking busy this week, dude. I just kind of had all kinds of musical projects and stuff land in my lap last week, so I have just been spending every night editing stuff, recording stuff, all that kind of jazz. So not a lot, but I did have time to watch a flick that I saw for the first time many years ago and didn't really like the first time that I saw it. I think because it was just different from what I was anticipating, or maybe what I was in the mood for. But we rewatched Jim Jarmusch's The Only Lovers Left Alive, his vampire flick that he put out.
You mentioned that last week, and I haven't seen it.
It's good. Like, this time around, I think, like, knowing what I was getting into, knowing that it is these, kind of sad, sort of emo, emotional vampires and stuff, I think just knowing what I was getting into made it a lot better. And also, probably just knowing that it's a Jim Jarmusch movie, so it's really just kind of like a character study. It's not really like a point A to point B story,
Okay. So at any point, you said, like, emo vampire, does one of the vampires ever go... You don't get it.
Nobody understands. It's cool, man. It's a beautiful movie, too.
Yeah,
definitely
one
one that you should check out. I think that you'll like it. I think the only other movie that I watched this week was a little old classic called Predator. A little bit of Predator action. Mm-hmm,
wow,
the OG.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great.
You can't lose with it, man. We did that many moons ago on the podcast with old Andy Wood as a guest. Fun episode. But you know what, Steve? It just hit me that even though we did that deep dive episode and we really covered it from all angles, there was something that we missed.
What did we miss?
And it was staring at us right there.
What?
Plain as day. Let me just run this by you and see if you think I'm crazy, okay?
Okay.
The Predator, right? The Predator himself.
Right.
He's wearing the mesh.
Mm-hmm.
He's got the headgear.
Gotcha.
Laser lights.
Mm-hmm.
The fascination with skulls. Is the Predator a cybergoth? Because I think he probably is.
He must be.
He's
gotta be a cybergoth.
Look at it this way. He's such a fucking cybergoth that even whenever he gets attacked and bleeds, his blood is like the inside of those glow sticks.
Holy
He's
shit,
a raver.
you're right.
He came to planet Earth to rave. He's like, I gotta get rid of these guys in the jungle. They're keeping me from the party.
I'd love to see the Predator with a pacifier in his mouth.
Yeah.
Just
in his
fucking
big old
going
ugly
to
mouth.
town. Yeah.
Just tripping out on X and stuff.
Yeah.
And there's probably like bass nectar playing. And he's just, man, he's fucking loving it. He's touching everything. All these predators are rubbing against other predators and stuff.
It's like the rave in the Matrix, whichever sequel that was.
Yeah, exactly.
Just
the big old
wetting
Zion
everybody
rave.
fucking, yeah.
Hey, dude, the
But
dreads
predators.
too. I forgot to mention that. He's got dreads. Like,
He does. Holy shit.
it's right
You're
there,
right.
dude.
It is. It's right there. He is absolutely a raver. He was coming from space in 1988 to bring to us rave culture.
Yeah.
Wow.
He came a long way, but the message was worth it. Am I right?
Thank you. Wow.
I think the only other stuff that I really watched this week is we watched the little like 45-minute documentary that Netflix put up about the last season of Schitt's Creek.
Oh,
and
right.
dude,
Uh-huh.
it was just such a nice little cherry on top of that entire series. It really is
Man,
among
I
the best
have
sitcoms
to
ever.
Watch
You have
this
to
show.
fucking watch it, man.
Yes,
You have to
people
watch
are
it.
so in love with it. The more like I see people talk about it, the more I'm like, yeah, all right, great. And I really hope I actually, it's one of those I'm kind of dreading a little bit, because what if I don't like it? Then
I mean,
I'm
if you
just
don't,
an
just-
asshole.
Yeah, just don't tell me about it, honestly. It'll be the kind
I'll
of
just
thing
pretend
where...
I didn't watch it.
Yeah,
Be
just
like,
keep
I haven't
acting like
gotten
you haven't
around
seen
to
it. You're like, oh, I need to get to that someday. It looks fun. Ugh. I really think it's one of those, though, where it's like, if you don't like this, you're probably heartless.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
I bet Mitch McConnell hates it.
The number of people I've had recommend it to me, and just the reaction I've seen online to everything about it, I definitely got to get on it. But we talked about this, I think, last week too.
It's a treasure.
It is. I gotta watch it.
Yep, that is for sure, man. And I'll tell you what I got to do, Steve. I got to stick a beer in my face hole. You want to?
Do that. I'm going to as well.
I'm excited about this, Steve, because this is one that we did a little social distant beer drop, because I got one of these co-beers a couple weeks ago over here from Cork's Liquor Stall in the old city Knoxville. I went in there, got some beers. I grabbed this one on a whim because I'd never had it before. And this is a Equilibrium, it's called. Equilibrium Brewing. It's just called C. It is their pale ale.
Uh-huh.
And dude, I'll tell you what, man. It's freaking awesome. It is absolutely amazing. Like, whenever you drink a lot of IPAs and stuff like we do, your taste buds kind of go numb. Like, you kind of lose the ability to taste
hops. A lot of
hops.
different flavor in there. Real intense. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Because I remember, like, whenever IPAs started becoming the thing, before I drank them, it's like my friends and stuff were into them, and they'd hand me one to try out or whatever. And I'd try it and be like, oh, my God, like, all I can taste is hops. Like, it's just so fucking hoppy. And nowadays, I feel like you could just, like, hand me a bunch of hop clippings and I'll put it between my cheek and gum and be like, I can't taste nothing.
Yeah,
but
I think
this
that's pretty
beer,
accurate.
It reawoke my taste buds whenever I had it, and I was like, oh my God, like, this tastes as intensely hoppy as like the first IPAs and stuff that I had. Now, the cool thing about it is it's just a pale ale. It's not an IPA. So it's not like heavily flavored with this, that, or the other. It's just a really fucking hoppy beer.
Okay.
And I think that you're going to love it. Pour with care. It's a foamy bastard, that thing.
Yeah, I've
He's a
already
foamy boy.
started pouring it. I'm glad you warned me ahead of time, because it's active.
What about that aroma?
It smells piney and resiny as hell.
It sure as hell is, dude. I think that you're going to like this one a lot. Yeah, go in there and see what that does to you, because for me, it was like a hot punch to the mouth. Isn't that awesome?
Damn. This reminds me of IPAs from like 2008-ish.
Feels like the first time.
It does. And like the IPAs have mostly gotten away from this. I actually missed it, I think.
I want more beers like this. Like, it's just, it tastes like beer. It's just really fucking hoppy. It's kind of the same thing that, like, I think both of us like about Lagunitas.
Yeah.
Like Hop Stupid, Maximus, and all those. It's like, it just tastes like really fucking hoppy beer. I can taste the flavor of the hops themselves. Yeah. Still tastes like a beer at the end of the day. Oh, man. Yeah, I could drink my body weight in this stuff.
It's got, like, the resiny, pineapple-y taste to it. I mean... This is exactly what people who hate IPAs for.
Oh,
but it's good. It's just really, it's really balanced. Like, it's not. I mean, I'm not gonna pretend like it's not piney and citrusy and all the stuff that people who hate IPAs hate about IPAs. But this is a very well balanced version of it.
Yeah, that's how I feel about it too. Kind of like what we talk about with the Maine Brewing Company stuff, where it's like, oh, this is just a very balanced beer that's not, super heavy one way or the other. Like, this isn't insanely boozy. It's not insanely sweet or super, super bitter or overly flavored, you know?
Yeah.
It's just a nice drinking beer.
I'm down with it. That's some good stuff, man. Way
I
to go,
thought you
Equilibrium.
Would be. You guys know what the hell is up. It is really, really good.
4.8%. So that's
not bad.
That's a pretty light boy. Well, this is a pale ale, not an IPA. So, but still 4.8%. That's not what I expected.
I mean, I think that's good enough for recording at 4:19 p.m. on a Tuesday, right?
Yeah, that's
probably good
true.
enough.
We have had some big 13%ers in like the middle of the day, and then the rest of my day, I'm like, what is happening?
Well, I'm done for the day, I reckon. Good thing I had that shot of Jameson before we started recording, too. I'll tell you that. Jameson, way too easy to drink, y'all. I mean, it's really easy to just mow through some Jameson, but it's so good.
I had that problem. I mentioned I got Old Forester 100 proof a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, yeah, you did.
Celebrate/commiserate. And it was too easy to drink for 100 proof.
And it's 100 proof too.
Yeah, I was like laid out pretty quickly.
It's easy to do that, man. I'll tell you what else I had this week. This is just a good old beer hack. Hey, beer hacks, y'all. We're teaching you something, huh? Yeah, learn something about a beer on this show. Yeah. I had a beer by a local brewer. I think it was Albright Brewing here in Knoxville. Okay. That was their chocolate dipped pretzel stout.
Ooh,
sounds enticing.
I love pretzels, and I love chocolate dip pretzels.
That's right. And a little bit of saltiness on there too. It's a good combination, right?
Yeah. How's this taste?
So it was good, and I had a sip of it, and I was like, okay, yeah, I kind of get the malty, chocolatey sort of thing out of this. Dude, I added a pinch of salt to the beer. And it came alive. It was amazing.
Do this to your coffee, everyone.
Okay, I've heard about this.
When you brew your coffee, add. Listen, I don't want to get into giving anyone medical advice, but if your doctor hasn't told you to avoid salt, go ahead and toss like almost a teaspoon in there. Like, don't worry. I mean,
that
again,
much?
Well, I'm talking about if you're making 4 cups. So if you're making a cup, like a quarter teaspoon or just a little dash. But
pinch.
The thing is that like it really, especially with like dark roasts, it really brings out like the chocolatey, like also like just sort of kind of like a creaminess to it.
Oh my, really?
Yeah, chocolate and coffee both need salt, I think.
I'll try that next time. That's one of those things I've heard about, but I always thought it sounded really grody, but now that I thought about how well it helped that stout out, it just kind of makes sense, actually.
This is what you do, is don't add it to the cup. Add it to the grind. So like...
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and like it will like... Basically, you don't end up getting all of the salt. Like it'll get kind of mixed in with the grounds that are left over. You get a good bit of it, and it really does taste great. It really rounds everything out.
I think I'll try that. I might actually even try that out after we're done recording today, because I woke up early as fuck. The dog had like a vet appointment, had to go get her legs checked out after her surgeries and stuff like that. Good news, surgeries are just healing up just dandy. So
awesome.
That is a good thing, man. But yeah, I could use a little something to keep my papers peeled, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean.
That's right. Now, Steve, we're talking today about Pan's Labyrinth.
Not deep dish Labyrinth.
No, it's not a hand-tossed Labyrinth.
Nope.
It's not one of those. It's the original Pan Labyrinth. And this right here is a dark fantasy. It's not just like a light fantasy. It's a dork fantasy. Fantasies that be dork.
Yeah.
And of course, I think all of us know that it features the Pale Man. So I say for this installment of Preview Palace, we're going to give these busters the top 3 things that also look like the Pale Man. I'm going to go with number 1, Mitch McConnell.
Yep. Number 2, a ball sack.
Yeah. Okay,
End
that
of
about
list.
rounds it up.
Yep.
That's kind of it. Maybe we should give him something a little bit longer to chew on here, Steve. How about we take a little detour into that Preview Palace?
Welcome to the Preview Palace Dark Fantasy Edition.
Oh, it took a twist right there, huh?
I'm a fucking Minotaur. Ah!
If I was a Minotaur, I would say that all the time.
I'm a fucking Minotaur.
I'm a fucking Minotaur. Steve, I say we break down for these busters, these dead and lovelies that are listening right now. Maybe we just lay on them our top 5 favorite dork fantasy movies. You know? Because there's a lot of movies out there that kind of fall into that light fantasy. We're not about that. We're a horror show.
Yeah, I think dark fantasy was pretty popular when we were kids.
I think so, too. It seems like they kind of like trusted our young adult minds to handle some dorkness in our fantasies.
Yeah, so a number of these we saw as kids and we've grown up with. And maybe if you didn't grow up with them, you'll disagree. That's fine. You head on over to our social media. Let us know all about all the great dark fantasies we should be watching.
That's right. Now, Steve, I'm going to start this list off here with my number 1 dark fantasy from when I was a child. It's having a sex with a witch with the lights on. My number 1 fantasy right there.
Right.
That's what we're talking about, right?
Yep. For me, it was having sex with a witch with 2 lights on.
Real bright. You're seeing everything.
Just double bright. Like, what's going on here?
Like, oh, I got to squint. It's so bright in here. Your skin is so pale, witch. You never go out in the sun.
Witches don't go out in the sun enough. What's going on, witches?
I know, right? Maybe they wouldn't need to make so many potions and remedies if they got some vitamin D every now and then. Get out of the sun, witches.
So,
all right. So now that we got that done,
yeah, we got things that look like the Pale Man. We got our childhood dark fantasies out of the way, and now we'll talk about our top 5 dark fantasy movies.
This is like the top 3 Preview Palaces for Pan's Labyrinth.
Yeah.
Number 3, top 5 fantasy movies that are dark. Okay. Now, number 5 on here is one that we put down. What's got, let's say, a Jennifer Connelly, somebody that harkens back to our very first episode, Dario Argento's Phenomena. I mean, going way back right there. We got ourselves one of her in here. We've got ourselves David Bowie's enormous codpiece. What? That's inappropriate. His Tina Turner wig, all kinds of things going on in this flick.
And a fushigi ball.
Oh, yeah, he did a lot of that, yeah.
Yeah.
Man, that ball looked like it had treated itself to a special on Black Friday sales at manscaped.com, if you know what I mean. That thing was slick and shiny.
Promo code DEAD20. Head on over
there. It definitely used that thing, man.
Get your balls as shiny as the balls David Bowie played with in the Labyrinth.
Just rolling around. Just rolling them all around his gloved hands.
You're welcome, Manscaped.
Yeah, this is the promo that y'all pay for right here. Yeah, this is what you signed up for. I feel like we should insert a clip of like Joaquin Phoenix Joker. You get what you fucking deserve. So Labyrinth is one of those ones that I didn't watch as a kid. There's a lot of these that I did watch when I was a kid, but I didn't watch Labyrinth until I was probably, I think, well into my 20s, because that was one of my wife's childhood favorites. And it is a treasure. It's got some really silly stuff. There's a swamp that smells really bad, and there's fart noises and stuff.
That is a positive for sure.
There's helping hands.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
There's dance, magic dance. There's all kinds of things in here, man. The child with the powers. The babe with the powers. That's what he says. I know the words. There's all kinds of things in here, Steve.
Yeah, and I don't exactly love it.
Okay.
I didn't love it as a kid. I've come to appreciate it more as an adult for its campy value and stuff. But as a kid, I just thought it was too silly. Like, just wasn't dark enough for me.
Oh, you were watching Only Lovers Left Alive as a kid. You're like, these are my kinds of fantasies.
I don't know what it was as a kid that I didn't care for it much. I have come to appreciate it a lot more. It is silly, but it's supposed to be silly.
It should be, you know.
Yeah, it's counteracting the dark fantasy elements, which are pretty dark.
Yeah, it's got some dark stuff in there. I mean, I guess David Bowie wanting to take a child bride is pretty dark.
That's pretty weird, you know, and you know, they're trying to take a baby and kind of just seems like all the elements of it are dark, so they had to make it a little more light and playful, and that is, you know, what everybody loves about it. But I think as a kid, it just didn't work for me. I was like, I don't know. You know, I was a real jaded child. I don't know about this.
Old jaded
we should
Steve,
get back to music.
Stick to music. We don't want to hear about your magic dancing in your cod piece.
Uh-huh. That's what I said to him. But yeah, Labyrinth is obviously, I mean, people love it.
Yeah, it's a good one. Now, number 4 here, we have one that we did on the show not too long ago. This is one of the only newer entries on our list. Actually, it's the newest entry on our list entirely here. It's one we reviewed on the show a little while back. You loved it. My wife loved it. I liked it a lot. Tell them about it, Steve.
Yeah, Gretel and Hansel. And I would say, I'd say this one is probably a little controversial, but this is our top 5. We're not saying this is a definitive top 5. But for me,
suck it.
Yeah, for me, Gretel and Hansel just has so many of the elements. Like, it definitely has a ton of, like, the great dark fantasy elements that you saw in some of these other movies we'll talk about as kids, but also some real great historical dark elements from the actual what am I trying to say? Folk tales, fantasy stuff. Thingies,
like Brothers Grimm tales and stuff.
Fairy tales. Folklore? Fairy tales is what it's called. Some of the real dark, like grim elements of those fairy tales that had been kind of taken out and sanitized. And this wasn't, Gretel and Hansel wasn't for kids, but it was, as we discussed in our episode about it, definitely for teenagers, it seemed. So it was aiming still at a younger audience, but it brought in a lot of darkness that I enjoyed.
Oh, yeah, me too, man. And it's just visually a feast. It is a really, really, really gorgeous movie. Like, it's one of those ones that you kind of need to watch twice, just because the first time that you see it, you'll just be so entranced by the visuals.
Yeah, that is true.
Also got a witchy woman covered in tattoos in there, too. That's a good thing.
Yeah, the design elements to it are really...
very cool.
Just so much of it, like the way the house looks, the way the forest looks when she's all jacked up on shrooms or whatever. Like,
yeah, tripping balls.
Just all of the... visually, it is a great movie, but also the story is solid and the acting's good. I think the little boy wasn't great, but other than that, it's good. Good movie.
Seems to have flown under the radar for a lot of people. I know a lot of people that have not seen that flick, but it's definitely worth checking out. And that's by old Oz Perkins, right?
Yes, it is.
That's a good thing right there, if you ask me. That's an Oz good thing. How do you think he does that? He's like, Oz good thing. Hey, Oz good thinking, buddy.
I don't know how often he does it, but it needs to be more. I'll tell you that.
I bet people are like, hey, Oz, have a good day. And he says, have an Oz good day.
Like my name, get it? And they're like, yes, no, we
do.
Yeah, you keep doing it. Yes, we do.
It's pretty on the nose. Pretty on the nose, actually.
Ben, what's a number 3?
Number 3, you want to talk about a movie that made us all feel extremely weird as children in the 80s. It came from parts Germany of the world. It featured a swamp of sadness that got us ready for being disappointed with the outcomes of everything in our lives. It had a kid who, maybe it was a boy, maybe it was a girl. Either way, you were turned on and probably confused as a young person. I know I was. And it also came with, of course, the greatest movie soundtrack song of all time. NeverEnding Story. You know who sang that song?
No, who?
That is the singer from Kajagoogoo.
Do shy.
Exactly.
Hush,
hush. That's the singer from that group.
I did not know that.
Yep. Limhall, or however the fuck you pronounce it. Yeah, that was his band.
Well,
and the NeverEnding Story is a treasure. That is one that, like, I remember as a kid, my brother and I would always get really psyched to rent. You know, because you rent the same movies like over and over and over when you were a kid.
Yeah.
We never owned it for whatever reason, but we'd always rent NeverEnding Story. And I'd always be really excited because I remember all the cool fantasy stuff and Falcor flying through the city and all that jazz. And then we start watching it, and it's just like, oh, yeah, this is fucked up and dark.
It is very, very dark. I wasn't a huge fan as a kid, but as an adult,
that's so weird to me.
I mean, I can't think of a lot of intentionally silly-ish movies that I was into as a kid, like, unless it was meant to be humor, like Labyrinth and NeverEnding Story are both campy as hell.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I just couldn't get into it. I
you
guess.
Were more into the highbrow humor of Naked Gun when you were a kid.
Yeah, yes, exactly. Naked Gun was where I was at for sure. But I don't know, like, I did love the Lord of the Rings cartoons and, like, Black Cauldron and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I was into it if it was a cartoon, but it seems like if it was live action, I was less into it. But
wow.
I do see the value of this movie now. It's definitely, like, so dark. And the songs really cover how dark it is.
I think what I'm going to do now on my YouTube channel, I'm going to make a video just for you, Steve. This is inspired by you in this moment. It's going to be called This Is Why You Suck at Childhood. And it's going to be just
officially,
to you.
I did suck at childhood. I was real bad at it.
What a square.
I was way too serious as a kid.
You were just a young man of discerning taste is all, man.
I sometimes do think that, like, my mind was slightly wiped and then I was put into the body of a child, because, like, there was so much of my childhood was me insisting I was an adult.
You're like, no, really, I'm a grown-up.
Yeah, no, like, come on, guys. You could just talk to me the way you talk to everybody else, because I'm a grown-up dude in a child's body. And they're like, whatever.
You can sell me the
kid.
beer, sir. I identify as a grown-up.
Listen, all right? The one joke.
Yeah, I get what you mean, though, man. It's one of those things where, like, you know, the dark fantasy stuff just didn't really get some people. Like my good friend Josh that I've known my whole life, like, he was never into any of this stuff at all. But it's like those of us that enjoyed this stuff as a kid,
just love
like,
it. Yeah.
Burned itself into our personalities, our memories, everything. And the NeverEnding Story is one of those ones that, I mean, you know, I think that I could probably, like, recite from memory almost, because I watched it so many times as a kid. Then I went through a big phase where I didn't watch it for probably 10 years or so.
Yeah. And
a couple of years ago, while we were house sitting for some friends, we rewatched it, and we were both, Kate and I were both just like, man, this is pretty fucked up.
Yeah. You know what movie I did love, Ben?
What?
And it's our number 2. That movie is Legend.
Oh my gourd.
Yeah.
Legend is a fucking treasure. What you know about young snaggletooth Tom Cruise?
That's true. That's true. He does have a snaggletooth.
He's got that center tooth going on. What you know about Tim Curry?
That's my favorite type of curry. A Tim.
Oh, yeah. Spicy. Yeah. Ooh, caliente. Little tingle on the palate. I'm a huge fan of that.
Directed by a Ridley Scott.
At the height of his powers. It's funny we mentioned this, and too, Kate just happened to have it on over the weekend. I was, of course, furiously working on my computer editing stuff, but she had that movie on in the background, and I just kind of like turn around every now and then and catch parts of it and just be like, God damn. That movie is just a visual masterpiece.
Yeah.
It is insane how much detail is in all of those shots. And there's always like, here's the thing about that movie. There's always shit flying around. There's some sort of like moving element to everything. And Blade Runner is actually the same way. So like at this point in his career, Ridley Scott was just obsessed with like something has to be moving on screen, whether it's lights dancing around or in Legend, there's a shit ton of chicken feathers that are always flying around. Like when they're outside in the forest and stuff, it just looks like little forest insects and things flying around, but they're chicken feathers flying around everywhere.
Yeah, I think, Del Toro kind of mimics that in the forest scenes in this. Yeah.
Yep, absolutely so, man. And the thing about Legend that I think is so cool is like, dude, there's a lot of elements in that feel like a live action anime or something. Like the character designs and the dialogue and even the way some of the shots are framed and stuff. You're like, this feels like it could be out of like Sailor Moon or something, you know?
Right. Yeah.
But like fantasy.
Yeah, I just as a kid it really stuck with me, especially, Tim Curry, fucking just amazing.
Mother Night.
It is something that like as an adult rewatching it, it's like, I don't think this was for kids. I mean, I know it may have been, but like it shouldn't have been probably. It is dark.
Yeah, it is.
Really enjoy it though.
And the special effects and like monster design and stuff in it too. Like fucking Meg Mucklebones and all that shit.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
It's like up there with some of the greatest horror monster designs and executions ever. Like that shit looks terrifying.
Yeah, it absolutely does. So that one is one of the ones that really did hit with me as a kid, for sure.
I get it. I totally get it.
Like, I think I've always wanted to find some other dark fantasy that's actually like aimed at kids that hits that level for me.
I know, right?
I mean, it's directed by Ridley Scott. Like we're talking about, like this movie, Pan's Labyrinth. I think
director.
Yeah, this movie, Pan's Labyrinth, I think is obviously on a similar level, but I wouldn't say this could ever be shown to kids.
No.
I'd like so anybody out there that knows anything on the level of Legend, that type of darkness, but still for kids, let me know. I want to see some of those movies.
I wonder about that too, man, because I feel like there was something about those movies and stuff that came out when we were kids that gave us a lot of credit, I think, as young people to understand and deal with the realness and the horrors and the sadness and stuff like that without it just being like, there's a courageous knight that fights a dragon and gets a princess. Like, really, really straightforward, simple stories like that. And I don't know that there's a lot of new stuff out there right now that gives kids that kind of credit to be able to deal with those things and process them. Maybe I'm totally wrong because I'm not watching children's fantasy movies. I don't know.
But anyway, let us know.
Well, I'd say there's probably also a lot of animes and stuff like that I just don't know about that
definitely.
Deal with some really dark fantasy stuff. So yeah, let us know over on the Facebook group and stuff, because if there's some more stuff that's kind of in that same league as some of these ones we've been talking about that
I'd love to see it. Yeah.
I'm too old to know about. Yeah, I definitely want to fucking see them. So let us know. I know we got a lot of parents and stuff listening to this show that might have some kids that are getting to watch some of this cool stuff that we don't know about. So let us know over on the Facebook group. And I'll say one more great thing about Legend, fucking soundtrack. Tangerine Dream. Holy shit. Incredible, perfect 80s synthesizer soundtrack. And then at the very end, there's a song that is sung by the king of the high voice. I'm talking about John Anderson from fucking Yes. He sings that song at the end of the movie that is just incredible. That dude, I'll tell you what, man. If you're a guy with a high voice, if you're one of them high voices, you got to sound effortless to sound cool.
Yeah, that's true.
And he sounds effortless whenever he sings that high stuff. Have you ever heard his speaking voice?
No.
It's almost hilarious. Like he straight up sounds like he just took a couple fucking whippets of helium, just straight up helium. Like, he just has a high as fuck voice. So when he sings, it's effortless and it's beautiful, man.
Yeah.
Now, Steve, before we drop our number one on these folks, before we go just soaking them in our number one, I say we got to give a couple of honorable mentions out, because I know there's some of people's, favorite dark fantasies that didn't make it onto our list. They're going to be fucking burning our thatched roof cottages that we live in down. They're going to be running us out of town with their torches and stuff.
That makes sense.
If we don't address some of their favorites, and I think we should go ahead and first put it out there that, yes, we realize The Dark Crystal is a classic of dark fantasy. Steve, this is just not one that really hit you, did it?
I hate it. I don't like
so
it at all. It's the
your
puppets.
Fault.
It's the Muppets. I couldn't get into it as a kid. And I did watch it as a kid. It just, I don't know. The last time I watched it, I just could not get into it. I've heard the TV show is good.
I've heard it's good. I'll need you to show me on the doll where the Skeksis hurt you, okay?
My ears. It's my ears. Yeah, that's where they hurt me.
All right, that's fair. That's fair. I get it, man. It's one of those that I also didn't watch as a kid. I watched that for the first time, probably late teens, early 20s. And it's a really, really interesting flick. It's also one of those ones that kind of makes me feel weird, kind of like NeverEnding Story does. It's definitely way more Muppety, and I think a little bit more kid-friendly, but it gets dark and fucked up at times, too. Like, there's that scene where the Skeksis are all fighting amongst each other, and the loser has to, like, get all his clothes stripped off in front of everybody. Yeah. It's just, like, weird stuff that made me feel strange as a young person watching this, So I can't imagine how it would make me feel if I saw it when I was a kid.
It's possible that I don't like the three movies that I've named because they made me feel weird. It is possible. Because, feeling weird isn't fun as a kid. I don't think. So I think I probably just avoided it. And then was like, let's put on Scarface. I don't know why they're chainsawing that guy, but okay.
And then you grow up and you're like, let's do these mushrooms so we can feel weird.
Yeah. What?
Feeling normal's getting boring.
I'm tired of this normal here. Yeah, there are a bunch of movies as well that could be categorized as dark fantasy that we kind of kept out because I think it's just too confusing to say, like, Edward Scissorhands is dark fantasy for sure.
So. Yeah.
But it's also, a dark fantasy Frankenstein man in a brightly lit suburb. Like,
yeah. It's just Tim Burton. Like, that's its own category.
Yeah, exactly. Tim Burton, because you could say Beetlejuice is dark fantasy, but it's...
That's true.
It's very, like, Tim Burton has his own sort of thing. So, yeah, you could say many Tim Burton movies. And if you did, honestly, our list would probably be several Tim Burton movies, which is kind of why it was like, well, let's exclude those. But you could also look at things like Coraline or...
Nightmare Before Christmas.
Nightmare Before Christmas, even. Yeah. Those things they're dark fantasy. And they're all quality. But we were going for a very specific thing, I think, here, and that is movies similar to The Labyrinth.
Yeah, stuff that has more traditional fantasy elements to it, such as witches, wizards, shit like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's why I kept 9 off of the list. 9 is kind of a newer movie, all animated and stuff. I guess you could call it dark fantasy-ish.
Yeah, it's also got, like, elements of, like, I don't know, some sort of, like, mystic punk. Like, it's very strange.
Right?
Yeah, that's directed by the guy who directed Night Watch, the Russian vampire movie.
Is it really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, Timur Bekmambetdinov, I think is the name.
We should do Night Watch sometime. I can't believe we've not done that on the show. Man.
Yeah, we'll have to. The thing about Night Watch that I have a problem with is that the American version, despite having awesome subtitles, cuts out huge portions of the story and doesn't make any sense.
I was going to say, is that why it doesn't make much sense, but it does look cool?
It does look cool, but it doesn't make any sense. But if you see the Russian version, yeah, there's like 20 minutes of it that are cut out that like kind of explain it. Honestly, it doesn't make a ton of sense even in Russian.
Okay. All right. That's fair.
But it's pretty, I mean, whatever.
Does it have the girls from Tattoo in it?
No, there are Jana Frisky's in it. I think she's a Russian pop star. She was either in that or Daywatch.
All right.
Yeah. Anyway,
Tattoo, where are you? What happened?
All the things you said.
Running through my head. What are they doing these days? I just don't know. Now, Guillermo del Toro, he has another movie that could be added to this list, a little Hellboy, right?
Yeah, Hellboy is definitely dark fantasy, I think.
I ain't never seen it.
I recommend you watch it. If you're a Guillermo del Toro fan, it's so Del Toro-y. It's got all the great things you want from one of his movies, and also all the creativity of the Hellboy comic book, the Mike Mignola, aesthetic, but it's very Del Toro-y. And you get Doug Jones playing a fishman before he played a fishman who fucked a lady.
In another Del Toro movie.
Uh-huh.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, I've been meaning to check those out. I've heard that one, like Hellboy 2, are supposed to be really cool. So that's on my list of things to watch.
I haven't seen the new Hellboy, which would still be dark fantasy, but not Guillermo del Toro. I haven't seen that one yet with David, the guy from Stranger Things. But it got bad reviews, but I also heard it was actually good. So I'll check that out sometime.
I'd find out about it. And one that I would also add to this list is a Tarsem Singh movie called Mirror, Mirror, which is fucking crazy, man. It is really, really wild. I mean, it's a Tarsem movie, so it's the kind of thing where you're just like, well, yeah, I want to see all the pretty stuff. I want to see things that are gold and crazy and shiny and crazy costumes and stuff.
Yeah.
It's chock full of that stuff, but it definitely draws from a lot of old school, fairy tales, obviously. With Mirror Mirror being the title, you can guess where the main inspiration comes from. But man, it's cool. I really wish there were just more Tarsem movies in general, but I would say they take a long time to make and plan out.
I'd say there's a whole lot of pre-production that goes into making those gorgeous moments happen. Because I mean that scene in the cell where like he's got the weird piercing cape thing, and as he walks he like pulls down the curtains with it, like
man, that's crazy. The cell is nuts. That's one we can totally do on the show.
Absolutely.
If that's not horror, what the fuck's the matter with you?
Yeah, it's definitely some form of horror. I mean, like, we'll have to watch it and talk about it, because that one is that is an interesting, because one I could see somebody calling it a psychological thriller. But, like, I don't know. There's so many moments in it that are definitely horror. But let's get to our number one.
I'd call it my favorite J-Lo movie for sure.
Oh, yeah. Hold on. Yeah. Okay, wait. Hold on. Okay. There is that one with George Clooney. What was that? The Elmore Leonard. Where he was he got out of jail and he was robbing places and shit and trying to get some diamonds from a place.
I know what you're talking about.
It was good. Anyway, but yeah, I think you're probably right.
Number one, this is going to come as a huge shock to anybody that listens to the show on the regular. Could there be any other, Steve?
No, it's definitely, and this is debatable for sure. Some people are going to be like, that's not dark fantasy. The Lord of the Rings trilogy.
Obviously. I mean, come on. Like there is no competition in my mind. This is the greatest piece of fantasy film that's ever fucking been made. Infinitely watchable. Like, I have watched those movies at least every year since they came out, and I just keep coming back for more.
And if we can't agree that the full trilogy is dark fantasy, we can at the very least agree that The Two Towers through its entirety is dark fantasy. It is dark.
Yeah, like, absolutely so.
I can see someone saying, well, the first and the third are epic fantasy. Like, they really are bright, and, we don't see a ton of these, like, dark, scary, like, spider cave moments and whatnot. But I mean, in 3 we get, actually, that is where Shelob is, right? The spider cave is in Return of the King. Right?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, it's in Return,
and the city of the dead, like all
City
that shit.
City of the fucking dead, man. I mean, dude, there's so much dark stuff in the third one as well. Yeah, the first one's maybe a little bit light on some of those elements.
Maybe,
I mean, the fucking Balrog. Jeez, dude.
That's true. You can't. Yeah, you really can't exclude any of them. They're dark fantasy for sure. It's just that it was like the Lord of the Rings is kind of like the beginning of like fantasy genre. I mean, not the absolute beginning or anything, but it's like the touchstone beginning for so many people that dark fantasy derives from it. So like
totally,
you can look at it and say it's not entirely dark fantasy, but it's like, well, without it, dark fantasy wouldn't exist.
Well, it's kind of like putting like, you know, the first Black Sabbath album on a list of top heavy metal albums, where it's just like,
it doesn't sound
as heavy as Meshuggah? It's like, no, there's not even screaming on it or anything. There's no double bass or whatever. But it's like, well, yeah, but it's the bedrock that everything was built on. So yeah, it's fucking metal.
Yeah, for sure. And we love the Lord of the Rings, and we're gonna be doing Two Towers in a month.
Are.
So I'm excited. It is our I think will be our fifth movie that Elijah Wood is in some way on.
Wow, yeah, I think you're right.
That we've done this year. We didn't mention it last week with A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night, but he was one of the producers on that film as well.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. You're right. Forgot about that.
We should get Elijah Wood on the show and just
kiss
know
what?
Him.
It's just crazy enough to work, honestly. You miss all the shots you don't take, Steve. I think we should probably tweet at that motherfucker and be like, hey, man, fucking get on here. So, yeah, that's our top 5 dark fantasy movies. If we missed your favorite, I want to hear about it in the form of a post over on the Facebook group. Facebook group has had a lot of activity. We've had a lot of new people joining up, joining in the fun. Hey, I'll tell you this, as many people are on there, I wish they would all go on Apple Podcasts and write the show a review. We've got hundreds and hundreds of members over there on the Facebook group. We've only got a couple hundred reviews. We need more. We absolutely more.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that will get us up in the search results so that people search. They find it, they start listening, and they go, oh, I hate these cucks, and then they write a bad review.
Exactly. And we need that.
We need those, yes.
Otherwise, the libs won't get pwned. If they don't pwn us, we'll just keep on libbing. But you know what I always say, Steve? Lib and let die. Or maybe it's lib and kill babies. I don't know.
Oh, that's what they do. That's what they do.
Lib and let lib.
They wait till the baby's out. This is what they do. I don't know if you heard this. They wait till the baby's out. They put it in a sauna. Like, they give it a massage and they, like, give it some champagne and everything. And just when the baby's like, the world's great, they stab it. And they twist the knife. And then they say, take that, baby.
And that's what they want.
And then they drink, they drink the adrenochrome and stuff.
Always, yeah. No. This isn't that kind of show, Steve. No.
Oh, no, what?
No. We're going to be doing some parlor-only episodes for you guys here soon. Stuff that won't get fucking censored by the liberal media. Holy shit. God help the podcast that does that.
I can't imagine.
Well, anyway, go on the Facebook group. Let us know what we missed. Write some reviews. Helps us out a ton.
Yeah, Facebook.com/Dead and Lovely. We're also on the Twitter and the Instagram at Dead Lovely Pod. Head over there.
That's right. You know what, Steve?
What's that?
It's the Thanksgiving season, and around this time of year, every single year, I just get the urge to shine up the old giblets, if you know what I mean. I'm talking about cleaning up my downstairs. Before we know it, the Christmas season is going to be upon us, and I'll tell you what, I just can't wait to unwrap my package.
Thankfully for us, there's all kinds of Black Friday and Cyber Monday deals from Manscaped.
It's a holiday miracle!
Manscaped offers precision-engineered tools for your family jewels.
Oh my lord, we're bringing technology to the sack.
Ben, I know you are a manscaper yourself. I am as well. And Ben, I have had in the past some atrocious occurrences
while
using a trimmer on my downstairs area. In fact, I've had some bloody experiences.
Oh, Lord of mercy. Nobody wants no part of that.
No, you don't. And I know some of you out there thinking, it's a crazy old time. I don't even get out ever. Why do I need to manscape? Let me tell you this. When you look good, you feel good. And when your boys look good, boy, do they feel good. I'll tell you that.
You're doggone right. You're doggone right, Steve. Just because you're in quarantine don't mean you don't need to be clean, y'all. But, Steve, let me let you in on a little secret here, because I know we got a lot of listeners on the show here that are saying, but, Ben, but, Steve, I ain't got no balls of my own. I don't need this manscaping. Let me tell you what, ladies, this can be for you, too, because I'm going to tell you what, you can get this thing and take advantage of using that up before somebody creates Womanscaped and starts charging you 3 times as much for the same stuff. Y'all know how this works.
Listen to me, Dead and Lovelies. Manscaped is forever changing the grooming game with their Perfect Package 3.0. What's in there? You get the Lawnmower 3.0 for lawn mowing your nards area. It's skin safe. I used it. No tugs, no nicks. I enjoyed it. You can even create a little less mess by using that thing in the shower or getting one of those Magic Mat disposable shaving mats they got. Catch all that hair as it drops. And let's not forget about the Crop Preserver anti-chafing ball deodorant. Do what? And moisturizer. This is amazing. You're putting deodorant on your armpits. Get some deodorant for your balls. What else are you going to get in that Perfect Package 3.0? Some anti-chafing performance boxer briefs. I don't know how they've done it. It's time to get this Perfect Package 3.0. Get clean like Mean Gene's bald head. Get 20% off and free shipping with the code DEAD20. That's DEAD20 at manscaped.com.
So this holiday season, be sure to trim the tree and trim up your balls with Manscaped.
Your balls will thank you.
And so will the people that love your balls. But you know what, Steve? I think it's about time we tell these busters what we think about Guillermo del Tomo's Panis Labyrinth.
Panis Labyrinth.
That's the one we're talking about today, right?
Wow.
Panis.
Yeah. You know what a panis is, right?
No.
That is the medical term for a fupa.
You don't say.
Yeah, that is the medical term for it. There's a medical term for a fupa.
Well, those can be labyrinthine in nature, Steve. Finding your way around one of those things can be tricky. Tell you that.
It's very true, yeah. You got to be careful in the panis region.
This is a movie from 2006.
Yep.
It's not exactly a super fresh one, but was this the first time you seen this film?
No. Saw this back in the day, of course. This was, nominated for 6 Academy Awards, I think. So it was pretty well talked about back in the day. And it was told to me that it was a horror movie before I watched it. I'd say it's dark fantasy, as we were just talking about. And we'll talk about the difference in a little bit. But I remember watching it and being a little confused. Because the bottle scene happens, and I was like, oh, shit, this is a horror movie.
Yeah, this just got fucking real.
Yeah, but, I remember at the end being a little underwhelmed, not really getting it. But I'd say my tune has changed a good bit.
See, that's kind of similar to my response the first time that I saw it, which was probably around that same time period. I might have seen it in theaters. I think I did see it in theaters, actually.
That makes sense.
And I went into it thinking it was a fantasy movie. Because, whenever you watch the trailers for the movie, they were just all the fantasy parts.
Right.
And then the movie starts, and it's just like, so during the Spanish Civil War, and I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. And there's honestly, relatively, by comparison, pretty little amount of time spent in the fantasy world of this flick. So
yeah, it's pretty small amount of the movie. If at the end the fantasy world isn't real,
right?
We'll have to get into that and talk about how often we're actually in the fantasy world and if it's a real world or whatever. But yeah, you're right. The fantasy elements take on such a smaller role than what the previews would give. Like, I hadn't seen a preview. I thought it was a horror movie and was very confused.
Yeah. So the first time I saw it, I was like, I don't know if I liked it or not, just because it wasn't what I was expecting. But watching it again for the second time last night, many years later, knowing what I was getting into, I think I had a different experience second time around.
Yeah. I watched it a couple times through this, and it really, like, as I said last week with The Girl Walks Home Alone at Night, when I have ADD, it's hard for me whenever it's subtitled, so I have to pay like real close attention. And because I had to pay real close attention, like I just found a lot of depth in this movie that I obviously did not see the first time through.
I'll tell you what, Steve, we're just doing foreign flicks all over the place. When's the next time we're gonna do something what speaks English? What is this? Is this podcast now El Muerte y Bonita? Is that our show? Huh?
Yep. That's
Is that
it.
our show?
Yep. Bienvenidos a El Muerte y... What was it? Oh, shit.
Bonita.
Bonita, right.
That's all we got now. We don't even speak English on this show no more. We don't watch no American movies at all.
You know what? Next week we'll get to something with Hulk Hogan in it. How about that?
Okay, how about that?
That'll be as American as you can get.
Yeah, so this time going into it, knowing what I was getting into, I think I enjoyed it way more. Way more.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously the first time that I watched it, there was a lot of things to like about it. I mean, the visuals are just absolutely stunning. But now seeing how the whole fantasy element plays into this movie, amongst the the gritty scenes of the reality and the Spanish Civil War and all that stuff that this is taking place in, I think it made a lot more sense and was a lot more enjoyable to me.
Yeah, for sure. And doing some research into the Spanish Civil War helped me a bit. And so hopefully I can provide some bit of context for that. It's very...
I didn't do none. Now, Steve, I assume that some people wanted pie and other people wanted tapas, and they fought about it and quarreled. Is that it?
Okay, well, there's a little bit more to it than that, but that was pretty much
the basis.
Yeah, that was pretty much.
They're both great things. It's worth fighting over.
Yeah, one side was like, I want a dish the whole family can enjoy, and the other was like, you can have small plates and all of you can have what you want.
Everybody gets something out of it.
Now, do you know how we do things here? Have you had that?
Oh, man.
At a restaurant, I assume I order food and you bring it out. Anyway,
I ordered tapas and it come out and I was like, "Where's the rest of it?"
What? I wondered why it didn't cost too much. Anyway,
tapas is paradise.
The Spanish Civil War is, of course, very complicated, as all civil wars are, but essentially comes down to the side that was for socialism and reform, and the side that was for fascism. And the fascists are obviously the bad guys.
Good guy.
This movie.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Bad guys. Got it. Bad guys.
Yeah. So the fascist side was not only nationalists and conservatives, in the Spanish sense, but internationally, they had the support of the Nazis. So they were good people, right?
Well, good thing nothing like that will ever happen again, Steve.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. A populist president with the support of the Nazis and a whole bunch of people who don't see a problem with that? I don't know. Anyway.
I mean, the only thing that could get crazier is if he also had the backing of the church.
He absolutely had the backing of the Catholic Church. Yeah.
That's just crazy. How could all those things happen at the same time?
You know what's real interesting is that historically, theorists think it's probably likely that they wouldn't have gotten into killing so many of the people on the other side were it not for the church.
Oh, I thought you were going to say, if not for you crazy kids and that Scooby-Doo. I thought that's where that was heading.
No,
sorry.
Scooby had nothing to do with it. It was the Pope.
He Scooby didn't. I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
Scooby don't.
So this movie really deals with the it's dealing with the Spanish Civil War, with the conservative nationalist side being evil and the church being evil. And knowing those three things, I think, is probably enough to help your understanding of the movie. The more you look into it, of course, the more each little thing might make more sense, and I'll try to talk about some of those things that I think are in here, but I think that's enough of a context to really understand a little bit better what's going on here. Because if you don't know anything about the Spanish Civil War, it just looks like, okay, there are soldiers, and then there are other people, and then there are people up in the hills that are mad about something.
That is what it looks like. You're
yeah,
right.
because it's never explained. But they're mad about being hunted down and killed. So
I would be mad about that. That makes me unhappy whenever that happens. I'm like, oh man, this shit again?
Yeah. It's no fun. So that is the world that this is in. But like Guillermo del Toro was less, the story as it sort of came about was less about the Spanish Civil War and more about the fantasy elements and telling this story of this girl who came from the underworld, was a princess in the underworld, escaped to our plane and experienced pain and death, and her soul has been stuck here on Earth, and there are these sites that her father in the underworld, the king, has established to get her back whenever she inhabits a body again. Mm-hmm. So that's the story he initially started with. That's the story he had written down in his notebooks and his doodles and stuff. But as he fleshed it out, he fleshed it out in a way that goes back to his movie Devil's Backbone, which is
I haven't seen that one.
Okay, I watched that one this week.
Okay,
and I had seen it before. I won't talk too much about it because I know you haven't seen it, and honestly, it is a movie you don't want ruined for you.
All right. I know it has something to do with some like an orphanage during the Spanish Civil War.
Yeah, same time. Yeah, same sort of thing. Like, the bad guys are on the bad side, as I just said, good guys on the good side. Basically what happened was he made that movie, and the movie is about like, innocence in these times of terrible human animal savagery, basically.
Yeah. The senselessness of war.
Yeah, and how innocence can be affected by these things. What happened was he made Devil's Backbone, and then, like, before it was released, 9/11 happened.
Ooh.
And it changed his perspective on things. And he kind of wanted a second run at it. So,
really?
So he took this story he'd been developing and sort of developed what he was dealing with from Devil's Backbone. So it is like a spiritual sequel, and definitely worth watching in reference to Pan's Labyrinth, aside from just watching it for, the pleasure of enjoying it. It is a good movie. It's well worth watching. It does complement this movie very well, and this movie, I think, takes it further. Definitely. You can tell how angry he got because of 9/11, like how much more disgusted he was at the way that innocence can be really just destroyed and perverted by all of these evil individuals in the world.
Wow.
Yeah. So
that is definitely dark.
Yeah. So the darkness is there for sure. The fantasy elements, though, I mean, like, there's just so much here from, like, we talked about the Labyrinth, which is an obvious sort of inspiration to this.
There's a labyrinth in here.
There's a labyrinth in here. There are elements about a girl taking her baby brother to, be involved in this whole labyrinth situation, though it's it's very these are just nods. I think I think they're nods to legend. I think there are nods to a whole lot of other things. Alice in Wonderland,
definitely a lot of Alice in Wonderland in here. I even get some Peter Pan and like Hook elements in here with
definitely
the captain and his obsession with the ticking clock and all that stuff. It's very Captain Hook,
and definitely inspired a lot by Chronicles of Narnia. This is another situation in which fresh information or a new thing gave Guillermo del Toro a new perspective. He was a big fan of C.S. Lewis. And then he found out C.S. Lewis was super Christian. And then he started to see how C.S. Lewis's stuff was all just very clear Christian allegory and became less of a fan.
Oh, so Guillermo is like black metal as fuck.
Yeah, he's awesome.
Wow, really?
Yeah, so he then obviously this does a lot of Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe type of stuff, being set, during roughly the same time. Being about a child escaping into fantasy, this fantasy actually going awry and things being scarier than originally expected, and it's definitely got those elements and still has some religious elements, but it's all to expose religion for the sham it is. Like, the religious elements are never like, Christianity is good and right. It's always like, and here these asshole priests are eating this dinner while they talk about having to, give out these meager rations to the poor and not really caring about the poor in the least bit.
Yeah, that's something that I kind of noticed this time too. There was just a lot of like, man, these people that are saying that they're doing the good thing that are just fucking awful.
Yep, absolutely awful. So this is, there's a lot of like context to know to really like get into the movie, I think. So I understand maybe why the first time you saw it and the first time I saw it, we weren't getting it.
Yeah, totally. It's funny you mentioned the Narnia connection too, because apparently he passed up on the opportunity to direct the first of those extremely popular Narnia movies so he could do this. Like, this movie was such a labor of love for him that he put up apparently like a ton of his own money for it. He accepted not taking any like money off of it, like any points on the back end, anything like that. Like, he didn't make a cent off of this movie apparently. If anything, it cost him money to make, and he still is like, yeah, it was worth it. It was a good move to make this, just because it was such a passion project for him.
Yeah, well, and I mean, it definitely paid off for him in, the award nominations and stuff, and getting his name out there for sure.
Oh, yeah. And it's a very uncompromising vision of what he had in his head. Apparently, he is known for being a extremely meticulous pre-planner, kind of like along the same lines as Peter Jackson and stuff like that, where like he storyboards everything out and just has sketchbooks and stuff full of drawings of what things should look like and what characters should dress like. He's very, very, very meticulous in everything that he does. And, I guess that really, really pays off when you see this movie and see that uncompromising vision where he's like, no, this whole thing is going to be in Spanish. Like, they easily could have made this in English for a lot of the world to enjoy, but he's like, it wouldn't be right if it was that way. This is a story about Spain. It should be in Spanish, which is a bold move, especially when you're putting up your own money to make it, knowing that, like, hey, you're putting in a language that most Americans don't get, and a lot of Americans are too lazy to fucking read a movie while they watch it. So is it worth it? And he was like, yeah, sure, it's worth it.
Yeah.
Bold.
He also insisted on being involved in the subtitling because he hated the subtitles for The Devil's Backbone.
Oh, so they're not really super accurate. And he was like, okay, I need to make these right.
Yeah. So that's, I don't think at any point watching this movie that anything was said that the subtitle did not explain to me. Like, there's so many times I've seen movies where the subtitles will be like basically just a word for word translation of what is said. So anytime there's any sort of metaphor or anything, it's like, I have no idea what that means. Like, actually on A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night, the dad calls Ati a blind cat at one point. I don't know what the fuck that means. I looked it up. I couldn't find anything. Like, so like this movie throughout, there's not a moment where I'm like, oh, I don't get what's happening. So obviously his work on subtitling increased the readability of the movie for people who don't speak Spanish.
Mm-hmm. That's right. And his background in special effects and stuff really paid off here. Yeah,
he worked under what's his name? Dick Smith. The guy who did
Dick Smith.
Yeah, Dick Smith is the guy who did The Exorcist and Godfather 1 and 2.
Oh, nice.
Recently we covered Death Becomes Her. He also did that. So
that's right.
Del Toro studied under this guy for quite a while before actually becoming a director with Kronos in 93. And then Kronos was 93, then Mimic was 97, Devil's Backbone was 2001. So he wasn't directing movies all the time throughout that. He was also working on other stuff, writing and special effects. So like his eye for special effects is specifically honed. Like he knows exactly what he wants, and I think that shines in this movie.
Oh, definitely so, man, because whether you like the movie or not, I don't think you could come away from this and not be blown away by especially some of the really memorable fantasy creatures in here, like the Faun and the Pale Man and stuff like that.
The Pale Man, for sure, yeah.
Yeah, dude, the designs and the executions are just amazing. Like, I remember the first time that I saw it, the Pale Man really stuck out to me, but this time watching it through, I was in awe of the level of detail that is in that Faun costume, dude. And I think, too, it's one of those things where, like, because it looks so good, I probably assumed that it was fake. I probably assumed it was CG. And now I come to find out that whole fucking costume is practical. Like, even the way that he has the crazy, like, goat legs that, like, extend back, like, they green screened his shins and stuff. His shins were, like, in this costume rig, kind of standing on his tiptoes, more or less, on quasi-stilts. And they just green screened his legs out. So everything that you're seeing is real. It's almost like when you find out, like, all the stuff you saw in Pumpkinhead was like legit, and you're like, how the fuck did they do that on screen? It's so good it can't be real, but it is. It's insane. And the amount of like servos and motors and stuff like that they put into the head with all the moving parts and the ears flapping around and the eye and mouth movements and stuff, it is wild. It's just one of those things, man, that when you're doing a fantasy movie, it is abso-fucking-lutely worth it to go the extra mile to make it practical, make it real.
Yeah.
I mean, good Lord, it really stands out in this flick to me.
Yeah, the Mandrake scene particularly, I just assumed it was CG, and then watching it through again, I was like, no, if that's CG, that's the best CG ever. Because
for real,
like
right?
they have it like out of focus, and she like touches it and move in focus. Like if that wasn't actually there on screen with her, it wouldn't look as good as it does. So that was something practical. But I mean, they touched stuff up with CG, obviously. There's definitely
there is CG in here for sure.
CG in here, yeah, and like the fairies and stuff, those are CG.
Yeah,
but predominantly practical effects. I mean, specifically the gore effects look amazing and are practical,
man. Dude. And there is some gore in this movie, and it's kind of like you said earlier, it's like, is this really necessarily a horror movie? I don't really think so, but dude, there is gore and violence in this that puts most all horror movies to shame. There is some truly shocking and disturbing scenes of violence. Like, what is the scene of violence in this movie that stands out the most to you?
The bottle scene is just brutal.
And it's out of so nowhere. Brutal. Like, you hadn't seen anything that brutal in the movie so far, and then suddenly the captain is just, collapsing that guy's fucking face with the butt end of a bottle. Like, I know that you always see in movies, like, a bar fight and a guy smashes a beer bottle over another guy's head. That doesn't usually happen that way. Like, those glass bottles and stuff, especially wine bottles, especially the butt end of a wine bottle, those things are heavy duty. If you really smushed somebody with one of those things, you're talking brutal damage, and it won't shatter.
And if it did shatter, even more damage. So, like,
oh god,
Guillermo del Toro, apparently he and his buddies were in a bar fight, and one of his buddies got hit with the butt end of a bottle, and that's what gave him the idea, because he was surprised it didn't shatter.
Wow.
Yeah, it is a brutal moment. It's the moment that really establishes Vidal as the villain that he is, and he's such a well-written villain.
Oh yeah, he is.
The fact that, like, we're already, a little we see her like Ophelia reach out her left hand to shake his hand, and he just corrects her, and he's kind of a dick, but it's like he's not terrible. And that's kind of the thing that you notice about him throughout, is that when interacting with everyone else, he's not exactly terrible, but when he's doing his job, he is a horrendous monster of a person.
Well, here's the thing. That almost makes him scarier, because
he can turn it on and off.
Exactly. Like, if he was that cold and cruel to everybody all the time and that one-dimensional, yeah, that's one thing. But whenever he can turn, like you said, on a dime and be this different person and sit down and have a meal with these people and be courteous and cordial to other people, and then this other guy is like, oh, you're on the other side? Cool, I'll smash your fucking nose in with a bottle inch by inch until your face is mush. And
for doing nothing.
Yeah, for doing nothing.
Yeah.
And then finds out he was wrong. Like, they had been hunting rabbits. The rabbits were in that guy's pouch and stuff the whole time. Doesn't even care. He just goes on and does his thing after that. Like, it's actually scarier, the fact that he has those two extremes to his personality.
This was also based on an actual story from the Spanish Civil War of one of these fascists beating a guy's face because he didn't tip his hat.
Serious offense.
Yeah, that's what you get when you have fascists, is they make the rules. So
that doesn't sound fun. That
no,
sounds,
it doesn't. Yeah,
counteractive to the human experience and individualism. Yeah. I think
so too. Yeah. Huh. So that scene, I think, is just one of the most brutal. What about you? What do you think is the most brutal scene?
Dude, that one is rough, but also the scene where Mercedes sticks that fucking knife in his cheek.
Man.
Rips it through. I mean, that's bad enough, but then when Homeboy stitches it back together himself, I was in a ball on the couch. Like, I've never had stitches, dude. I've never had stitches at all. Okay. So then to watch somebody stitching up their own face wound like that.
Yep.
Holy shit, man. My toes were curling up watching that stuff. Bet. Oh, man. But him getting that, like, Joker smile.
Yeah. That's brutal. Oh.
And then it's also just, like, so, I think, intentionally symbolic that the only way this guy will get a fucking smile on his face is if it's fucking carved out with a knife, you know?
Yeah. He's got, like, the one time I think he comes close to smiling is when the doctor suggests, what if his baby isn't a boy?
Yeah.
And it's like, he's like, come on, which, like, the idea is like, I'm not, I guess, unmasculine enough to produce a girl child. Like,
I guess so.
It's some machismo type of thing. Like, there's something going on there where it's just like the concept that his sperm could create a female child is just laughable to him. Yeah, that's the only time he comes close to a smile, I think. So you're right. Yeah, that scene, like the cutting the smile, so, like, brutal. There's moments throughout here where I feel like things happen that just don't fit logically for me. The fact that she doesn't kill him doesn't fit logically entirely for me. I can understand maybe the argument, like, she's not a killer, but she does end up killing him.
Yeah.
But then maybe is it that she was pushed to the brink because Ophelia was killed by him? Like, but still, in that moment, everything is at risk, and all she has to do is stab him.
Well, and the thing is by leaving him alive and then walking away, it's like, well, she knows he's going to go tell on her, and then all those guys are going to come after her. Yeah, that is kind of just like a logical, like, well, geez, you had him, like, literally on the ground with a knife to his fucking heart. Like, why didn't you just do the job then and there?
That moment's a little bit weird for me. And also the fact that she walks toward all the men instead of going around the corner and behind the house. But we've seen spatially behind that house is the woods, so she could have just gone straight toward the mountains.
I'd slip out that way. I think that seems like a better escape route to me, man.
But again, I mean, the scene worked, so
That's true. And also, too, like that storehouse where all that scene takes place in is also where we see that prisoner getting tortured.
Yeah.
And dude, his hand
brutal.
ends up like demolished. Like it's up there with like fucking Green Room in terms of just like hand destruction. Oh,
yeah.
It's so.
Yeah, it's hard to look at.
What's that other movie that we did recently where a guy got like a crowbar to his hand?
Oh yeah,
and it just, like,
Evil Dead, the Evil Dead 2013. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's it. Yeah. Oh fuck, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are wounds that really hit me hard. And there's some boom headshots in here too, man.
Yes.
Woo.
Yeah, there are, and they look good too. Like when he gets shot in the face, like the entrance wound is just that small bit, like because like
hole,
yeah. You know. So many movies just assume every bullet just makes your head explode, and that's just not the case. It looked so much more accurate and right, and also brutal because of that, because it feels real instead of feeling comical and crazy.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, the violence in this never seems ridiculous or completely out of place or overdone in any way. It seems like these are like fucking Faces of Death videos that you're watching or something, right?
Yeah, which is that's what adds, and that's why I think it's got that great balance then of like extreme like reality to the point of being surreal, like just like is how what this happens, but you know it does, and then the fantasy side that is like it seems to be completely separated from what's going on in the real world, but there's actually like a lot of connection between what's going on there in the fantasy world and what's going on in the real world, to the point where, you know, obviously the question is she like actually in a fantasy world, or is it real?
Yeah, because there's so many things in the fantasy world that you can tell she got the ideas from based on things that were in the real world. Yeah.
So like the first task that she has to deal with, the frog under the tree, it's under this tree, killing its roots and eating up all the bugs.
Very Legend of Zelda fucking task to complete. Yeah. You gotta go feed the frog 3 precious stones. Like, which Zelda game is that from?
and Del Toro is a huge fan of comics and games and stuff like that, so he may have even gotten it from a video game.
What a nerd.
Yeah, he's definitely, though, juxtaposing it with the dinner scene where all these people are letting the tree of their society go to shit while they eat everything up.
Yeah, and they're talking about like, well, I don't know, maybe these fucking food vouchers are too generous, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, The fact is they're starving their own people to starve their enemies. Again, this is what happens with fascists. But anyway.
Not good.
Not good. So, those two things are being juxtaposed, and then while that happens, we also have the situation with the key, where Mercedes has a key to the storage area. Yeah, and he takes that key from her, and then Ophelia gets this key from the frog. So there's then this key in both stories that kind of
being taken from a greedy fat man, basically.
Yeah, then sort of is intertwined with the rest of the story. So like what he does is he kind of, it's almost like a fairy tale, like we get the 3 tasks sort of thing, which is common in fairy tales and stories of the sort. 3 tasks that you have to complete. Yeah, the rule of 3s is pretty general with most Western storytelling and jokes and things like that.
Yeah, 3 wishes from Aladdin's lamp. Stuff like that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the idea that she has to go through these 3 tasks is also being reflected in the real world, where we see Mercedes, she has to deal with getting the medicine to the doctor. Then she has to deal with getting the doctor to the place to have his that one guy, Frenchie, to have his leg amputated, and then she tries to escape with Ophelia, and then she is caught. So like there are these 3 different tasks that she basically goes through that lead up to. I didn't think about
that. Yeah.
Yeah. So like there are these reflections going on in the real world throughout, but the fantasy world and the real world also start to blend, like visually. Like the way he shows the fantasy world is much more warm and like circular and archy, things like that.
Yeah. That's something I was going to say. I love the visual language of the 2 worlds in the movie and how they're very different. Like, they feel like the same world. It doesn't feel like you're like, wait, what the fuck movie am I in now? Like, they look like they belong in the same universe, but they're just 2 totally different takes on, again, the visual language.
Yeah, and like, when she's in the fantasy world, it's warmer, and outside, it's darker, so there's warmer, like, reddish, orangish colors, and on the outside world, it's often blue and stark.
Yeah, so very cold.
Yeah, those things slowly, though, throughout the film begin to kind of merge. So, like, you'll see elements of the fantasy world in the real world. Like, on the banister of the stairs, you see the fawn's face as one of the little, whatever you call it, at the end of a banister.
Little knobby things, like a newel post?
Yeah, the little knobby things, yeah.
I didn't notice that.
And you start to see, like, whenever she comes to the fawn in the labyrinth, it's in the bluish light. So now, like, the fawn is supposed to be in the real world at that moment, but then we see that Vidal doesn't see it, which is where, like, most of the question about whether or not the fantasy world is real or not comes from, because he doesn't see the fawn. And that is, it's shown in the real world visual language we've been shown the whole time. But it also showed it that way from her perspective.
That's the only time that we see her talking to nothing. Like, we've seen her scene from her perspective, and she's talking to the fawn, then to the captain, she's talking to nothing. But then it's one of those things, too, where it's like, you can kind of explain it away either way, because it seems as though the adults, especially the fascists and the captain and stuff like that, have this real disrespect for imagination. It's like they have no creativity. They have no imagination or whimsy about them. Like, he sees everything that she's reading as being like junk that she's putting into her head.
Yeah.
He very much discourages free thought, which, again, fascism, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
So you're like, maybe he doesn't see the fawn because he has no imagination. Like, he has no way to process that. So maybe that's why he doesn't see it there at the end. But I don't know. It's not really clear, and I'm glad that it's not.
Yeah. People have also theorized that, you know, because he's drugged, maybe that's why he can't see it. Because she, you know, poured that sleeping aid into his
the Jesus juice.
If you take these sort of things as official, Guillermo del Toro believes that the fantasy world was real.
Okay, yeah.
So, but he, you know, hasn't made some sort of definitive statement because, you know, you don't do that as an artist. You don't say this is how you are supposed to read my work. But he thinks that the fantasy world is real. But he also presented it in a way that you could see it either way, because I think there's value to that. If the fantasy world isn't real, it is this young girl trying to escape the horrors of her real life.
Yeah, and that's kind of the thing that I got out of it the first time, that I thought it was like, you know, this is a world that she's escaping into because reality is so bleak. But, you know, it's like, I'll go total Harry Potter on it and be like, well, just because it's imaginary, because it's in your head, does that make it not real, you know?
Exactly, yeah. Like, the stuff that she goes through all seems very real to her. I mean, she definitely got super dirty at one point. Whether there was a huge frog, we can debate, but she definitely got real muddy. Somehow.
Yeah. Somehow or another.
Yeah. I think that is one way to look at it for sure, that no matter what, her experience is that. I think there's also a way to see it as the labyrinth and the fantasy world are also a representation of this world that used to be before the Civil War, and that the labyrinth being out in the woods and these the rebels being out in the woods they're sort of equating the two and saying like these rebels are fighting for this world, this more fantastical world where everyone gets to pursue these sort of things and pursue their imagination, pursue what they want to be. They're
bastions of free thought, in other words.
Yeah. As I said, the Spanish Civil War is much more complicated than I could put it right now, but you're definitely talking about one side that was predominantly the artists and the people who wanted socialism, and they did not want these strict rules, and they didn't want the church, and they didn't want all of these things, and the other side did. They wanted absolute control. They wanted an authoritarian regime. So it is easy to see how you could equate the fantasy world and the rebels. So there's a lot of different ways you can see it. And then there's also just the possibility that the fantasy world is absolutely real. She is a princess from the underworld, and that's what's going on.
Maybe
if
that's the
case.
Huh?
Yeah, if that's the case, it's just fucking interesting. Just an interesting, cool story that still has all those different potential meanings, but also has something to it that is otherworldly and doesn't need explanation, perhaps.
Yeah. It's a really cool way to look at that movie, where it's like it makes sense either way. Like, it makes sense if it is all this true fantasy and she is this reincarnated princess and all that stuff. It also makes total sense if it's just like, man, the world has a lot of fucked up stuff in it. I need to escape and get away to this land of my imagination and all these things that, my subconscious has picked up in the real world and things I've picked up from these books that I read and stuff. It makes sense either way,
Yeah, for sure.
What do you think about that pale man in this movie, Steve?
Okay, all right, yeah, so the pale man, we talked about the frog and what it may represent. The pale man, Del Toro says that it's a representation of the Catholic Church, very obviously interested in children, perverse. Yeah.
Stigmata-like wounds on the palms.
Yeah, stigmata-like wounds on the palms. The just disgusting, flabby body. I think specifically like the way the legs are shaky and amuscular, like they're just almost like bone entirely. Whereas
that's the thing about him is he's so well fed, but yet is still emaciated and hungry.
Yes, because he always wants more.
Yeah. Right, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Never enough. Yeah, I think that's exactly what he was getting at, is like this creature that always has to consume, and if you take something from it, it's taking more from you. Like you can't ever get anything from it.
Even if it's a fucking grape off of his table.
Yep.
that is full of more food than he could ever even consume.
Yep. Yeah, I think there's definitely like other ways you might look at it. Like there's the fact, there's a Japanese monster called a tename, which has eyes in its hands, and maybe you could see something there. Maybe you could connect it even to Crumb of Real Monsters, which is where I think that Del Toro probably got his inspiration.
I mean, it makes you wonder, because as much of a nerd as he is about other stuff, I think that's possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Because that show, Real Monsters, like you look back at that art, it was very unique. It was by the guy who did Rugrats, like very interesting, entertaining, also weird, dark fantasy for kids.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you look at it, there's a lot of different ways maybe you could see it, but like I think in this case I'm gonna go with Del Toro entirely and be like, okay, yeah, that's the Catholic Church, because that is the clearest understanding of what it is. The fact that he uses his hands to see, like, this is something that my wife will get right now. My wife is a picker. I don't know if any of you out there have.
I'm a picker myself, Steve. I like to pick up that old guitar and pick out a few, huh?
Others of you might have significant others who love to pop zits and things.
Oh, that kind. No, that's not me at all.
Not you at all. I know.
No.
You like to pick and grin.
Yeah, pick and grin.
Pick and grin.
That's more my kind of thing.
Yeah, my wife will often say, like, like if I have a zit, she'll be like, I just want to look at it, and her hands will start going to it, and I'll always say, you look with your eyes, not your hands. And I know this is a weird way to think of this, but I think that's maybe what he's getting at with the eyes on the hands, that like the way that they molest children, like, come over here, let me see that, you know. And they're really,
see with my hands.
Yeah, they're very grabby, and that is their method of taking in the world. Yeah, so
no me gusta.
Yeah, so that monster is definitely that. I think, and then our third thing is the test of whether or not she will shed innocent blood, because she is innocent. Will she corrupt her own innocence to get the thing she wants?
Yeah, will she give up even a drop of her little baby brother's innocent blood? Like, he doesn't even ask for much. He's not like, let's kill this fucking baby. He's like, we just need a drop of blood, and that's it.
Yeah, and
she won't do it. Being a moral, virtuous person is like, even a drop is too much.
Yep. Which is the point of the movie, right? Like, the point of the movie is that if your side, if your belief needs to kill other people to make it happen, then maybe it's wrong. Maybe you need to step back and see that your fantasy is wrong and not real. Or, maybe it's a test, in this case, that will, by not doing it, by seeing where your political ideology is going, where it's leading to the death of innocence, by seeing that and refusing to do it, are you succeeding? Are you helping society in some way? Are you making a better world?
Yeah.
I think, like, again, as I said, this is, he was definitely writing about innocence and the way that innocence can be corrupted in this world. And this is, incorruptible innocent who reminds everyone watching what it is you're actually fighting for. Like, these adults that maybe even you don't know anything about the Spanish Civil War, these adults fighting their wars, I mean, maybe even it is better you don't know, these adults fighting their wars it's confusing, and it seems that people are dying for nothing, and this innocent view is able to put perspective on that, like, to show the horror of it while also trying to make something beautiful out of it. I think I think that's what we all do with the trauma of our childhood, right? Like, we try to take something horrible and try to make something good out of it.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's where so many great works of art come from,
Yeah. So, yeah, I think that is what it's getting at in the end. Like, her innocence and her desire to stick to her principles and who she is the ultimate goal. Is beyond this petty war that's going on. It's beyond all these other adult issues that they think are so much more important. It really is about this purity and not harming others.
I think so. I think there's just a very clear message that Del Toro is saying throughout here, where it's just like, whether it's the fascist government, whether it's the Catholics and their influence of power, it's just like, don't nobody tell me how to live my life. He might be American. No. He needs to get tested for American.
He's North American. Close enough, right?
Yeah, it's close enough. It's close enough. Now, what do you think about the cast in this, Steve? This is always one of those issues where it's like, it's a little bit tricky to talk about cast, considering that the entire thing is in Spanish, obviously. So it's like, I wouldn't know if they were blowing the accents and stuff like that, but like the physical portrayals and stuff like that, I think are all fantastic. I assume that all the dialogue is good.
I assume so too. They seem to be, at the very least, physically acting well. So
yeah,
I would say that of all the people in here, Doug Jones will be most familiar to non-Spanish speaking audiences, because he was in Hocus Pocus, he's in Hellboy, Crimson Peak, all sorts of stuff.
Oh shit! Really?
Yeah, Shape of Water, etc. He's done all the creatures you can imagine.
That's cool.
Yeah, he's the one who'd be most recognizable. But we also have like Mercedes Maribel Verdú is in Y Tu Mama Tambien, which was
real good movie,
relatively popular. I've seen it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We also got Ophelia Ivana Baquero, who is in the Shannara Chronicles, which was on MTV. Is a popular fantasy novel series that they tried to Game of Thrones, but kind of messed it up.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, so kind of like Game of Thrones.
Yeah, kind of exactly like Game of Thrones.
That.
Yeah.
From what I understand, the guy that plays the captain was previously more of a melodramatic or comedic type of actor, and a lot of people really doubted it when he got cast in this role because this is apparently not really his kind of thing that he usually does. But man, he is cold as hell and super intimidating in this.
Yeah, he's so good. I would say, like, other than just the writing, like the way that he portrays this character, because he's so good at the turn on a dime moments. Like and that's got to be real hard to do. He's the calmness in the torture scenes and stuff, just all of it. He's so good.
He is truly a good villain in this, man. I forgot how fantastic he was in this, man. And really, it's one of those deals where the whole movie just looks so fucking good, whether you're in the fantasy world, whether you're in the real world or whatever. It's like so much thought went into all of these sets. And again, judging by Guillermo's extreme amount of detail that he went into in his notebooks and pre-production and stuff like that, it just seems like everything is deliberate. Like how the captain's chambers, even the interior of them, that have these big unexplainable gears and shit on the walls. It's like he's in a clock. It's almost like he's so obsessed with reality and time and life and death. It's just like that's again that lack of imagination that he has. It's like everything is a machine. Everything works like a clock
mechanical,
to him. Yeah.
It's also probably a cheeky little nod to Mussolini always having the trains on time. It's a fascist trait, his obsession with... Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's cool.
But yeah, I think you're exactly right about the mechanical nature of him. Like the way that he sees everything as a cog in a wheel. And basically, to him, if you're not one of the chosen at the table, as they said, we chose to be here, which is not how that works. The chosen, if you're not a part of the chosen at the table, you're not a part of the watch. You're just not a part. You don't need to exist. He says, like, the shit he says is pretty brutal. He says these people hold the mistaken belief that we're all equal, but there's a big difference. The war is over and we won, and if we need to kill every one of them, then we'll kill them all, and that's that. Actually, in
black and white, yeah.
In Spanish, he said, if we need to kill every one of the sons of bitches, we'll kill them all. He's very black and white. He's very, as you said, mechanical. Everything works in order, and if it doesn't, it needs to be destroyed.
Yeah, there's no way to kind of fit in between the cracks in that kind of view of reality.
Yeah. I think, he, as characters go, he and Mercedes are the two that we spend the most time with, right? Like, other than Ophelia. Ophelia obviously is the star of the movie, but it's mostly the captain and Mercedes. And their scenes together are always tense.
Very much so.
Yeah.
It's almost like he always knows in some way that she's more
suspicious
than just
of her. Always, yeah.
Yeah, it's like he knows that she is in some way an equal, but will never fucking admit it.
Yeah, and that's what she said. Yeah, that's what she says whenever he has her tied up, and then she stabs him. Is that he never saw her as a threat? That's why she was able to remain invisible. And it's just his like what we're seeing whenever they're together is her fear, because she knows, that she is working with the rebels, and then his just general suspicion of everyone. Like he is suspicious of her, but he's suspicious of everyone that isn't a soldier that he can command.
Pretty common dictator trait.
Because it's about having absolute and total control. I think Yeah, I said earlier I wanted to differentiate between what horror and dark fantasy is, and I think there's this quote from Del Toro that really kind of sums up a lot about the movie. He says there are two facets of horror. One is pro-institution, which is the most reprehensible type of fairy tale.
Okay.
So he said, it's basically the don't wander into the woods, always obey your parents, don't do drugs.
Okay,
don't
morality
have sex.
tales, yeah.
The other is completely anarchic and anti-establishment. And not only is he playing here with the idea that he establishes here, because we have the anti-establishment and we have the the by the book types, but he's also kind of playing with what horror and dark fantasy are. Like, that's why this could, like, when somebody tells me Pan's Labyrinth is a horror movie, I'm not going to correct them, because I think that it affects people like a horror movie because he intentionally messed with the boundary between the two. So the boundary between horror and dark fantasy is that horror is at its core about fear. Like, it is about the fears that we all have, primarily of death and pain, but just our fears. Dark fantasy is about kind of having control of those fears. Like, notice how Ophelia throughout is never afraid of anything she sees.
That's true. Yeah, she's never like, holy shit, a fawn? Fuck.
Yeah, it's not even until the Pale Man is chasing her that she gets afraid, because, like, seeing him, she even just picks up his eyes on a plate and just looks at him, just like, she is not frightened. So at the center of dark fantasy, you don't have to have this terror, this always nagging fear that we have of death.
Just making super unusual things common and somewhat ordinary and expected.
Yeah, exactly. But this movie blends the other side with the reality side. It is blending in horror elements. So, like, the dark fantasy doesn't have to have all this other stuff, because we have the fears that Mercedes has of getting caught. We have the fears that the people on the mountain have of getting caught. We have the fear that we see in the torture scenes and in the bottle scene. We have all those actual real world horrors going on. And then in the dark fantasy, there's no fear. It is an escape from that. So dark fantasy doesn't have to have the horror, but a dark fantasy movie and a horror movie could be basically the exact same, except throughout the horror movie, you have to feel like all of the dark fantasy creatures are going to kill you.
Yeah.
The dark fantasy movie, all the dark fantasy creatures could be frightening as shit, but the entire time you're like, hey guys.
Maybe they're all right. Yeah.
Yeah. So
that's an interesting way to kind of differentiate between those two. And like you said, it is kind of a gray area a lot of times, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And I think that was, it's great that he played with that. And like, just from reading that quote, I was like, oh, he's playing with that in this movie. Like, he's trying to play with the ways that the two different types of horror, play with the ways that horror and dark fantasy intersect, and the ways that they're different entirely. Like, he did a really good job, and it's not surprising. I mean, he had been keeping a notebook, I think it said, for like 20 years of like ideas and different things that he had, that he all sort of coalesced into this movie.
That's crazy, man. That's really wild. I will tell you what, though, there is one thing about the fantasy and the mythology of this movie that did strike me this time and kind of fall apart a little bit, but this is totally one of those lost in translation elements. The fawn is not Pan, like from Greek mythology. Like, there's no mention of Pan whatsoever. It's just like they're like, I don't know, Americans know goat leg guy as Pan, so therefore it's his labyrinth. But he's not Pan. He only calls himself a fawn. Pan is never mentioned in this movie at all. So I was like, why did they dumb it down title-wise? Because the Spanish title is like The Labyrinth of the Fawn.
Yeah, and calling him Pan doesn't work here at all. Like, Pan was a fawn, but Pan was specifically about sex and celebration. Like, he almost always shown with an erection. Like, that's not what this is about. Yeah. I guess they were going for something they thought would be familiar to Americans, but it's also like,
it doesn't make sense though.
It doesn't make sense. And how many Americans are actually that familiar any fucking way? Just call it Fawn's Labyrinth.
Yeah, it's fine, man. The Labyrinth of the Fawn. That's totally fine. Yeah, I didn't really get that this time. I was like, okay, that was kind of out of nowhere and totally irrelevant to the movie, but I guess that's the title.
Yeah. I have some nitpicks with the movie for sure. Like, specifically, and I think this is because it's fantasy and it's based off of fairy tales. Some of the actions of Ophelia don't make sense to me. Right. Specifically, why she eats those grapes. Yeah,
I mean, the fairies are telling her not to do it. Yeah, the fawn told her not to do it under any circumstances.
All she has to do is walk out. Like, it's not like they've established that she's hungry. Like, she gets to eat all she wants. Like, if they had been establishing everybody was, like, struggling for food, including the soldiers and their families, then it would be like, oh, okay, well, that would be a tough one. But in this case, it's just like, she gets all the food she wants. They tell her, don't eat that. And she's like, but they're grapes, though.
But I'm gonna. Yeah, you're right. It's like she lives in a world where she gets a pretty green dress made because there's going to be a gathering.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, I doubt you're really that starving for a grape, girl.
Right. Yeah.
You know?
And that is, I mean, that's one of the elements, I guess, of the fantasy that we haven't talked about is that, like, she is dealing with stuff, but she's not suffering in the way others are suffering. And her fantasy is that she is a princess and that a monarchy is like a thing, which was part of the fascist side. Was there were monarchists because previously they had a monarchy, so they had some monarchists among their group as well. So, like, to have her fantasy be that she's a part of a monarchy kind of illustrates like how little she understands the world around her. Like, she doesn't.
That's an element of the fantasy I didn't get that blended in, but yeah.
Like, she's sort of detached from all of this. Like, the suffering that she's worrying about is her mother's suffering, which we don't know the full story behind. And I kind of had a question about that. Like, her previous husband was a tailor who made stuff for the soldiers. Then he died. We weren't told how he died. And
it does seem like a weird omission, doesn't it?
Yeah.
They're like, oh, and then he died. Of what? Death.
Yeah, and then the captain came back into her life, and then they got married. And I had the question as to whether or not the captain had killed her husband to get him out of the way to marry the wife.
Yeah, it could be. I didn't think about it.
Yeah, the way the conversation was going, those two ladies that were, like, hearing the story were like, oh, funny how things like that happen. And it's like, wait a second, what? Like, it's not really. Like, so were they indicating something had happened? Because he then immediately changes the subject.
Yeah, he does. And we never come back to it ever, do we?
No, we never come back to it. Then we also, in that same scene, just a little bit later, he's asked about his watch, which he then lies about as well, which I think is supposed to indicate to us that he was lying before. Because we know the watch, and we know he has the watch. We've seen him with the watch. That's one of the first things we see him with.
One of the things that Kate pointed out is, like, that might even be him not wanting to appear sentimental.
Yeah, that's
amongst
a definite,
his peers and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's one of those things that might be perceived as, weakness.
Yeah.
So maybe he puts that aside, just as he hates imagination and stuff. He would also hate sentimentality.
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely going on there. He's got that whole, like, again, macho thing going where, yeah, you can't show any, like, even with his wife, he barely shows her any affection. I don't know how much he actually has. It seems like he's mostly interested in a male child more than anything.
He's a real Razor Ramon type, isn't he?
Yeah.
Hey, Chico.
He did. It's weird in the bottle scene when he walks up. He's like, "Hey, Chico, where did these rabbits come from?" Flips a toothpick. Yeah.
Then puts that guy in the razor's edge. I mean, it's kind of on the nose, really.
Pretty much. Yeah. I don't know how we hadn't talked about it up to this point.
Also, he was played by Scott Hall. What the hell?
What? I think that this movie, though, like, despite some minor flaws, and again, the flaw with the eating of the grapes, it's a fairy tale, and honestly, I think we talked about it with Gretel and Hansel. Like, the beautiful thing about fairy tales is that anything can happen. Like, they can break story structure, they can break character consistency. That's all fine, because they're stories you tell to children, and it's really about imagination more than anything.
Yeah.
But I considering all the other like solid story things that are going on, that just seems like it seems out of character and not. It seems like it was just written for convenience. I mean, and then just after that, for some reason, she draws the door in the ceiling just to make it harder on herself, I guess. I don't know. Like, why she because she started to draw the chalk door in front of her, then saw he was coming after her, and then went to the ceiling to draw the chalk door. And I was like, why?
I mean, I assume it's so he couldn't just follow her through the door or whatever, but it's like, if she can reach the ceiling, well, he's a lot taller than her.
Yeah, exactly.
Surely he can do it too.
Yeah, and like, she could just make the door small enough that he can't get through. Like,
but it's like you said, that's like some fairy tale kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's fairy tale logic. It doesn't have to be entirely logical. And again, it's kid. Like, you know, she's a child. Like, at no point do they present her as like more adult than her age. Like, she is specifically shown to us constantly as she is a child. Like, she acts like a child. She does childish stuff. She's not like an annoying child. She is a very well behaved child, but she's a child. So her acting like a child in that situation works, I guess, but it just does. It seemed out of character for me.
I get it. It's still a really, really neat flick. It is. Yeah. It's a pretty long one, but I feel like the pacing stays good throughout. I think that other elements, like the soundtrack, is pretty understated, but I think it should be. Like, it doesn't have a fucking Tangerine Dream soundtrack. Also, it doesn't really need one either, you know? Like, no. A lot of it's based around that lullaby theme and stuff, and it's very understated, but it's neat to hear that lullaby melody appear in all kinds of different iterations throughout the flick. So I think that's kind of a good touch on here. But I mean, to me, really, it's really all about the visuals and stuff with this flick. I think this is a very visual-based movie, and it's a treat to watch just for that reason alone, because there's so much detail that went into everything. But like you said, whenever you look at it from the historical perspective and consider what this was saying about the fascists and stuff like that, I think that this becomes a really interesting movie from that side of history and that side of that culture and stuff.
Yeah, I agree. I was happy to read more about it. I knew there was a Spanish Civil War around the time. I knew, you know, there was a lot of upheaval in Europe, but I had never really gotten deep on the Spanish Civil War, and reading about it was eye-opening, I'd say.
Yeah.
So yeah, go check it out. Maybe while checking it out, just relate it to current events, and maybe you'll find why it's interesting to me, because it's real similar in the lead up.
Man.
Mm-hmm.
I totally get it, man. If you're gonna slap a number rating on this sumbitch, what are you gonna put this thing at on a scale of 1 to 10?
Okay. That one, I mean, I hadn't thought about it at all. Throughout this, all I've talked about is the positives, really. The primary negatives to me are just there are a few things that seem to happen just to propel the story, but don't really fit character necessarily. But those are not huge. And, I mean, the special effects are great. It looks wonderful. I assume well acted. Did the Castilian Spanish ever distract you?
No. I mean, honestly, I was just kind of hooked on the subtitles, so I was like, yeah whatever.
I kept every once in a while I'd just hear the th, and it would just be like,
yeah, totally.
I don't know why it's silly to me, but it's silly. But again, that's neither here nor there. That doesn't affect the score at all. So yeah, great, well written, well directed, well acted. I agree with you that for a 2-hour movie, it flows really well and doesn't seem to ever linger too long. I mean, like, a lot of stuff happens in the movie. A whole lot happens in that 2 hours. So
not a lot of dead space in there for sure.
Yeah. So for me, it's I don't know. Let's say like a 8.5, maybe a 9. It's around there. I like it a whole lot.
Yeah, I totally get that, man. I think for myself, for all the reasons you just named off, I'll put this at a solid ocho. I'm going to give this an 8, an ocho.
Yeah.
I would rate it higher if it was just one of those things that made me like happier to watch. I mean, it's one of those ones you're not going to want to watch this all the time because it's fucking dark. I mean, just the fact that this is based on history and how brutal the Spanish Civil War was and stuff. And I mean, I'm sure, this isn't even an ounce as graphic and fucked up as the stuff that really happened that affected a lot of people's lives and everything during that time period. But just the fact that, when you see this brutalism of the fascism and stuff like that going on in this movie, oh yeah, there's reality behind this. It does make it a drag. It makes the movie kind of a drag. It's just not really a feel-good kind of flick. So that makes it like one of those ones that I'm not like jonesing to watch again anytime soon, but when I do, I'll be like, man, that is a really damn good movie though. So I'm gonna call this thing a solid 8 on my scale.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yep.
Well, Benzo, what are we talking about
Benzo
next week?
Ferrari, man, dude. We are coming in hot and talking about a movie that I ain't never watched before, but it's one that the commercials and advertisements they scared me to death as a kinder kid, as a child. Mm-hmm. This thing terrified me. Steve, next week we are going to the heart and soul of things that terrify Uncle Ben, little bowl cut Uncle Ben. What are we going to be talking about, Steve?
Gremlins 2.
The new batch.
Yeah, Gremlins 2. This, boy, howdy. It is something.
I'm excited because, I mean, I know the Key and Peele sketch. I just get the impression that this is Cocaine the movie, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep. Very much Cocaine the movie. So just wait. I can't wait to hear your reaction.
I'm stoked, man.
I hope it lives up.
The original Gremlins movie on the show a couple of years ago, like, we got into some deep, topics about like Ayn Rand and objectivism and capitalism. Like, there's a lot of stuff in that movie that's like worth exploring. Actually,
for sure.
I look forward to seeing what comes out of this one.
Well, there's an exploration of capitalism, I guess, sort of.
Okay, all right,
not really.
All right, cool.
It's a meta exploration. It is. If you put Hulk Hogan into a movie, will it make more money?
We'll find out next week, I suppose. Well, in the meantime, you guys be sure to support the show over on the Patreon page.
Yep, patreon.com/deadandlovely. Head on over there. Become a patron at any level. You get access to our Patreon exclusive episodes. Become a $5 patron. You get to submit a movie into the old bowl, and we draw it just like we did this one. This Laura Latour told us to do any Guillermo del Toro movie, and this is the one we did. So
boom shakalaka. Yep, it works. The results are in your earbuds right now. If you throw $5 a month at us, you put in a movie, we draw it, we talk about it. This could be your episode. Ooh. So support us over there on Patreon. Hang out with us on Facebook and Discord and Instagram too.
Yeah. Facebook.com/deadandlovely, at deadlovelypod on Instagram and Twitter. Always on them social medias, so you can catch us there, as well as the Discord. Just message me, ask for the Discord link. If it's been posted once a week on all the social media, but if you message me, I'll give it to you directly.
There you go. Get it right there directly, like. And, Steve, if I'm not mistaken, this episode comes out the day before the Giving of Thanks Day, right?
Yeah, it does.
Wow. So you're telling me it comes before the day that we're all going to celebrate America by going into someone else's home and infecting them with diseases.
Yeah, sounds right. Uh-huh.
Huh. That seems to have a historical precedent, but I can't quite put the dots together on that.
I don't know. Can't put my finger on that. No.
I hope everybody out there has a very safe Thanksgiving, and be smart and be considerate, guys. Like,
yeah,
the numbers are worse now than ever for COVID-19 across the country. It's the kind of thing, man, where I was thinking about it, and I was like, man, if you'd have asked me to go to a big old family gathering in like April of this year, I'd have been like, hell to the no. No, I'm not sitting around a table with like dozens of family members. Fuck no. It's a pandemic on.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have done that in April. It's fucking worse now.
Yeah,
so
it is.
Please do be careful, especially if you have loved ones and stuff that are immune suppressed, elderly, heart, lung conditions. I mean, just the list goes on as far as like why you really probably shouldn't be around anybody that doesn't already live in your house this year. Don't worry about it. There'll be another one. Things are just going to be kind of different this year. Everybody be safe, be considerate out there, and have yourself a good old Thanksgiving. And we'll be trying to do the same thing, right?
Yeah, I'll be giving thanks with my wife and my dog. That'll be fun.
That's what we're doing too. Yeah. We are having a little solo Thanksgiving this year as well, and we're not seeing anybody. It just seems like that's the safer thing to do. I got all kinds of family and stuff that are at risk, that have a list of health problems that mean that getting COVID would be very, 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 very disastrous for them. Yeah. So I'm not seeing them. Like, that's my way of saying, hey, I'm thankful you're still alive.
Yeah, I want you to continue to be alive, please. Yeah. Thank you.
My gift to you this Thanksgiving is not bringing my germs around you. So I hope all you guys out there are, putting some thought into it. Not trying to tell you what to do with your lives or anything like that. I'm no fascist.
Yeah.
I'm no fascist.
I am. You can't go see your parents. Stay
your
home.
Family. And we will catch you guys next week for a brand new installment of Dead and Lovely. Thanks again so much for tuning in. I have been Uncle Ben.
I have been Hollywood Steve.
We have been Dead and Lovely.
We love you.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Steve, there's been something that's been weighing really heavy on my mind this week, and Dave Grohl style, I've got another confession to make.
Okay, let's hear it.
I'm kind of concerned that I may have caused the entire COVID-19 pandemic. As a child, I think I may have wielded dark wizard powers.
Oh, no. Tell me.
Yeah. Because I was thinking about it, and I do remember this one time that as a kid, I was getting all frustrated, right, with being homeschooled.
Okay.
I was like, oh, man, I have to stay home all the time with my family. My parents are my teachers, my principals and stuff like this. Oh, it sucks. But people would make fun of me for it. So I was like, I swear to Satan, one day I shall exact my life upon the entire world and let them know the horror of homeschool.
Okay.
I think I might have put it into action. It might have been on me here, guys.
So we're
because everybody's living my childhood right now, man. Like everybody's staying home, getting homeschooled and stuff. Like I'm kind of forcing my childhood on everybody.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Huh.
Sorry,
Is that
y'all.
why my wife keeps teaching me about creationism?
That's exactly right. And why do you think you've been wanting a bowl cut so bad lately, huh?
I have been just begging for one. Please put a bowl on my head, I say.
That's right, man. I'll tell you what, there's never been a better time to invest in jorts because my childhood is becoming the worldwide norm. Buckle up, everybody.